Hello, everybody. What the fuck is up? Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for tuning in. Yeah, that's it. What is this? 78. Episode 78. Bow, 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 bow. This is the last solo episode in the studio. Holy shit. Wow. Who would have thought? Almost 80 episodes. It's crazy, guys. It is crazy. The 80th episode, oddly enough, is going to be in the new studio. The episode later this week on Thursday was already recorded. It'll be recorded in here, and that's partly why I'm doing this one here. I could easily do this one in the new studio, but I want to keep the continuity. Plus, I love this fucking place. You know, it's funny, man. When I started this, I was like, oh, this is gonna be one of those things that I start and I'm gonna fucking forget about, and I'm not gonna want to do it anymore. And it's just like a lot of other things that I've done. But to say that I haven't missed I've been consistent. Did a lot of learning. Still plenty more learning to go. This is still the infancy of this shit. Still the infancy. Like, you'd think 80 episodes, you're almost at 100 milestone, whatever. That's cool. Maybe we'll do something big for the 100th episode, but it's, expectations are the killer of dreams, essentially. Don't get me wrong. Expectations, there's good in expectations as well. But when I started this podcast, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing it for, why I wanted to do it. Like I said, I talk about it all the time, how this was super spontaneous. This was just out of the fucking blue. I bought the mic over there, which is going to be back in service soon. I bought that thing, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with this thing. I thought I was going to use it to, like, record music, because I bought the saxophone, too, which I haven't used, but... I didn't have any You listen to the first episode, the intro episode. I had zero, and I still have not very many expectations for this. I obviously want it to be successful, don't get me wrong. But once you start to attach yourself to things and start to attach yourself to ideas and stuff like that, it can be detrimental. And I've seen it in the past with myself. Which is why I'm most worried about it. So, the fact that I've gotten to this point, which really is a baby step in the grand scheme of this whole thing and where I want to be, the fact that I'm still at this is mind-blowing to me. But part of all this is just understanding that this could all switch on a dime. God forbid I end up having to, God forbid me and my girlfriend break up and I have to switch all this up, right? Now I have to move out on my own. I have to do this. I have to do that. Maybe the show ends up being just a single person show for a while. God forbid. I don't want that to happen. That's just, I don't know, just popped up in my fucking head. But, what if I move? Right? What if I move to another state and now I got to find all new people to have on the show? What if I bring on a co-host or an editor or something like that? That would all change the dynamic of the show, essentially. So, again, you got to be willing to roll with the changes, roll with the punches, and that's what the fuck it is. And we're at a good place with it. Don't get me wrong. The show hasn't blown up by any means. And I don't expect it to for a while. I really don't. Again, expectations are a problem. Not always, but, it's impossible to get anything done without having some kind of expectation. Like, I obviously want this podcast to do good. I want to have my own studio. I want to be able to have on whoever the fuck I want on, right? And that's technically an expectation, right? That's something I want to do eventually. But to dwell on it all the time and to have these mini expectations of the show and all this stuff, it's detrimental. It's detrimental because you get disappointed. You get fucking disappointed. Think about it. You have a conversation with your boss and you guys are going back and forth and you put the bug in his ear about a raise or something, and he seems optimistic about it. He or she seems optimistic about giving you a raise. So you leave the conversation expecting a raise. And then when it doesn't happen, you're like, fuck. I just bought a motorcycle. I just leased a new car, right? I thought I was going to get this raise. And they can bury people. They can bury people emotionally. They can bury people financially, physically. If somebody buries you, you know what I'm saying? Kill you and bury you. But no, I've really grown into trying to not expect things. Except for the unexpected. That's the only thing to expect. So things to go absolutely haywire and fucking wrong, and that might be not the most positive way to think. But I'm a believer of having both. I'm a believer of not losing a little bit of my negativity, because then how would I be as cynical as I am, right? Cynicism is like my main form of hilarity or comedy, right? Making light of very intense situations. That to making them funny, right? Making them offensive and funny. That shit to me, it's hilarious. And don't get me wrong, there's other ways to be funny, but for me, plus the way we all view the world differently based on how we were raised, based on the experiences we went through in our lives, right? Somebody comes from a shit background, broken neighborhood, broken family, whatever. You're going to think the world's fucking broken. You're going to want to, fuck the world, all that shit, right? You become angsty, you become whatever. If you grew up with, all happy, sunshiny, then that's what you're going to be a very optimistic person. It's the way you view the world is very much a part of you, right? Because the only way that you view the world is through the lens that you were given. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean you can't change it. I used to be far more negative than I am now, far more negative. But if I didn't keep a little bit of it, how would I ever be able to shit on the people at Newport Creamery? How would I ever be able to make jokes about a pandemic that has wiped out 500,000 people? Right? It's not funny, right? It's not funny to say that, it's kind of nice when people die, right? That's not funny. But, it is. It is funny. Regardless of whether you guys want to admit it, it's fucking, that's what it is. It has to be worded the right way. It has to be said the right way. That's the whole thing with comedy. That's the whole thing with being funny, right? You got to say things the right way. I remember my senior project in high school, which last week Ace Aceto, he was on, and he was my mentor for the senior project because mine was on stand-up comedy. And I remember doing some research about what stand-up comedians actually do. And I remember reading about Chris Rock and how he had a joke about the difference, and it's a famous bit, very, very famous bit. It's fucking hilarious. And, it's about the difference between black people and N-words. I hope that doesn't make me sound like a dickhead for saying N-words. But, he talks about how he had to work that bit out. He had to find the right terminology and the right verbiage and the right, vernacular and all that shit. How many words can I come up with for words? But, he just had to work it out because he said when he originally came up with that, it was incredibly racist. It was an incredibly racist joke, incredibly racist bit. And I learned that the hard way. I talked about my PTSD moment where I did my jokes that I had never tried in front of people, and some of them were on some pretty intense topics, I guess is a good word, and I went out there and felt very, very uneasy, very, very uncomfortable. So within reason, I'm a fan of the style of comedy that, is just ruthless, within reason. Like, sometimes it's not funny, sometimes you're just being a dickhead. But I love that. I love seeing reactions. I love getting reactions out of people. That to me is so fucking rewarding. Like working a person and to get a reaction out of them, that to me has always been hilarious. That's why my best friend James, why we've been friends forever is because he has the best reactions to the shit that I do. Like I think it's hilarious. Like we've grown into very similar people, but also very different. Like I am far more ruthless in some of the humor I find. He's a little bit more of a human. I'm more of a sometimes I think George Carlin put it the best, where he talks about how he kind of removed himself from human society, which is impossible if you're a human. But I understand what he's saying. He kind of observes, he commentates on it. And that, to me, is some of the most impressive comedy. It's just, social commentary. And if it's ruthless, it's even better. You know what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong. You need some creativity as well. You can't just go on there, and there's very few people that can just rant off the dome and have it be hilarious. Like Joey Diaz, Tim Dillon, those guys can rant and fucking blow down the house. It can get excessive sometimes, but that's what they do. That's part of what makes them funny. So I forgot why I even got on this topic. Oh, so me and James, right, we can go back and forth, and I love getting the reaction. To me, getting a reaction out of somebody is hilarious. I work with a guy, he was actually on the podcast when Mike and Drew came on. It was our first episode with 2 guests, I'm pretty sure. And they were just, passing the mic back and forth. We're going to have a lot more of those coming forward, too. So we got a bigger table. We're going to have a mic system that's going to work. So I love getting a reaction out of Mike because he's a funny bastard. Like, that makes me laugh. I love working a person, which is what is and I've realized it, which is what is attracting me to doing comedy again, because you're essentially working a whole room. Sometimes it's hard on here to get a reaction out of something. Like, on here, it's a little different because you're sitting right across from somebody. You don't know how they're going to take it. If you have a wider array of people in an audience, there might be some people who find it funny. There might be some people who don't. Which is why when these podcasts come out, it's in front of an audience. Some people think it's funny. Some people think it's not. But when I'm sitting across from someone, it's hard to get a reaction out of them unless I know them personally, right? But yeah, I don't know how I ended up on this on this fucking topic. But yeah, guys, going forward, I have some super exciting stuff coming. The new studio is going to be awesome. We're going to be able to have more people in at a time, and it'll work. You know what I'm saying? Like, before I've had, people on, and it didn't work very well because, the echoing or whatever. But all the tech stuff is going to be different, a little, kind of different. I want shit to go smoother. And I think what I'm doing is going to make it go smoother. So, for example, I have right here the end of one of the other microphone that's right across from me, right? And it's a USB. And look at that. It pops right out. It sucks. Like, I don't... It's gotten me to this far, and I appreciate, obviously the simplicity of these microphones and everything, but they cause a lot of problems, the USB shit. So there's going to be some new tech stuff. There's going to be some new ideas. I'm hoping being in a new space will allow me to be more creative. I'm essentially going to have my own room, my own office, which is going to be sick. I'll have all my time, I'll have all the time in the world, my own space to do my thing, brainstorm new ideas for the show, and just keep being creative, man. I started this thing to be creative. Like, I started this thing to allow me to have some kind of a creative medium and create content. And sometimes, sometimes some episodes are better than others, put it that way. Sometimes I don't know what the fuck I'm going to talk about. these solo episodes, I think, have come a long way because at first it was tough. At first it was kind of tough for me to just sit down here. And to say that it's easy now is probably not true either. But, it's been growing. It's just been growing. And I want to keep creating. And I feel like a space, an environment, a new environment, a new space will allow for that. Brainstorming ideas. I found that I need to allot time for that stuff. Like, I need to set some time in the day to just brainstorm, think of new ideas for the show, think of new ways to create content, and, keep up on this, because that's the most important thing, consistency. Without fucking consistency, you can't make a sauce without consistency, right? You can't even make a stew. Your stew needs to be consistent, right? You want that nice, thick, rich stew that just warms your cockles on a winter day, right? You're not going to get that unless there's that consistency. And yes, I may be comparing life to stew, but it works, right? There's plenty of things you compare life to. I think stew is a beautiful way to, it's a beautiful analogy, right? Because stew, you throw a whole bunch of shit in it, right? You set it on the crock pot for 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe you go to work, right? 8 hours long, fucking, right? You come back, and your stew's ready to go. That's what the fuck it is in life, man. That's what it is in life. You throw a whole bunch of shit together, you let it marinate, right? You leave it the fuck alone. I'm realizing that a lot of art is just doing something and just putting it the fuck out and just whatever the fuck it is, that's what it is. I've always kind of realized that, but a killer of artistry and a killer of productivity is nitpicking. Now, don't get me wrong. I pay attention to the details. I want to pay attention to the details. And I nitpick. But there's times where it's like, okay, the cut isn't perfect, right? The cut in this episode is not perfect. But we're sitting here and wasting fucking time. We're not being productive. We're going back and forth trying to just set the fucking thing out. It's going to be fine. Nobody's going to notice. That's the other thing. You also have to realize, I'm a very particular person. And I think everybody's going to notice everything, right? And it's not true at all. I'm the only person that I know that notices everything all the time. Because I'm super observant. I literally notice absolutely everything. I go to a restaurant, I notice that guy over there I notice his face when the food comes down. Whoa! I see it, right? I see that shit. Like, I'll look to the left and, there's a kid who's fucking drawn fishes or something on the table. And I'm like, yeah, look at that kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just hyper aware all the fucking time. And I think other people are too. And for the most part, they're not. Like, for example, I remember watching an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, right? Biggest podcast in the world, super respected, has phenomenal guests. I don't need to big it up. Everybody knows. But I remember an episode where they were switching the cameras kind of back and forth. And it kind of went black for a second. It went dark. And, it ended up going on. There was a camera that was pointing at Jamie. And, it glitched almost. And it was pointing at him. And he was like, the view was like him looking at the camera, like trying to fix whatever he's doing. And you don't expect that to happen on a show of that stature, on a platform of something like that. And it did. Right? It did. It was a folly, a little misstep in the show. But it was organic. It was real. And the show was still phenomenal. I'm sure I listened to the whole rest of it. Right? And that's something I'm trying to get past. Something I'm trying to work on. Just understanding that, hey, get that shit the fuck out there. Just get it out there. Who cares? Like, if it takes off, it takes off. But you'll never know if you don't get it out there. If it shits the bed, it shits the bed. Most of the things that I put out shit the bed. Most of the things that we do, there's only a few things that we end up being very, very successful at, right? Whatever your measure of very successful is, if you're lifting weights or something and you want to deadlift 315 pounds and that's your measure of success, then there you go. That's one of the things that you've gotten pretty good at, right? But along that fucking way, there was a lot of 135-pound deadlifts that you weren't very good at. You know what I'm saying? But there were moments where you got good at them, right? Maybe 2 days in a row you were able to deadlift 225 easy for 2 sets of 10 or something. And but think about that moment compared to all that solitary moment compared to all the other ones. A lot of the other ones sucked, right? A lot of the other ones were, or maybe they didn't suck. They were just run of the mill. They were just regular, right? That's just what the fuck it was. But that's with everything. Not every episode of, Saturday Night Live, and I don't like Saturday Night Live. I don't know why I brought that up. Not every stand-up comedy set is going to be funny. Not every stand-up comedy set is going to kill. Some of them are going to do well. Some of them are going to be good. Some are going to be bad. Some of them are going to just be normal, regular. But some are going to fucking explode, right? And those are the ones that really make you appreciate all the times that everything was just normal. Everything was just whatever. I release my podcast Monday and Thursday. Boom, boom, boom. I release them. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. But there's also, like, different victories, right? Like, for example, I thought having Professor Hale on, or Haley, I'm sorry, I don't want to say his name wrong. Professor James, I had him on from URI, and that was a phenomenal episode. Phenomenal conversation, phenomenal episode. But it didn't blow up, right? Like, I had Brian Bogue on, I had Tom Evans on, and those episodes got hundreds of views, or, 100 views on YouTube. Dozens of views, let's say that. Whereas that episode with Professor James didn't blow up in that way. But I learned a lot in doing the episode, and I reinforced my skills. That's most important. That's where the consistency comes in. I reinforced my conversation skills. I felt after that episode that I was like, okay, I have the ability to converse with all different types of people. I just had a professor of philosophy on my show. I know bare minimum about philosophy. And I just listened to this gentleman speak to me about the oppression of the black community, how history was erased, how, black art needs to be palatable, right? Whereas white art really doesn't. A white art is already accepted. All the things all the books and all the ideas we take from European people, European scientists, European artists, European philosophers, when many African artists, African philosophers were saying a lot of the same things, right? But it took ages for us to even realize that. So after having a conversation like that with somebody who's a professor, he's a doctor, and after speaking with him, it's like, okay, I have the confidence that I can speak to just about anybody. And I've had people on here that I've never had a conversation with before, but I've met, and they're a little bit like me. Like, I've had Brian Bogue on here. We sparred. We talked about fighting and all this stuff, but we didn't have, like, a serious sit-down conversation. Tanner, when he came on, I met him. I know him. But again, they're both kind of like me. We're, more or less meathead-ish, right? We come from middle-class families. We've grown up in the same region for the most part. Like, we're similar. And when you're similar to somebody, you can have, a more, an easier free-flowing conversation. But when you're sitting down with somebody who you haven't spoken to in a while, or somebody who you don't really know on a personable basis, you have to act a little bit different, right? It's still a normal conversation. It's still a free-flowing conversation, but there's a little more. There's a little different essence in there. You can't, he's not going to pick up on the things that you and your buddies find funny, or the people that you assimilate with find funny. He's not going to pick up on those things. He's not going to pick up on the, unless he is that same way as well, or she, or whoever. So that episode, granted, didn't do the best ratings-wise, I guess, if that's the word, ratings or views or whatever. But I took something away from it. I know that episode did something for me. And I'm not in favor, per se, of the artists that say, I make these things for me, I don't care what other people think. I am, but I'm not. Because art is a thing that we create to be noticed, right? Artists who make a career out of their art, aren't doing it for their fucking health. Yeah, maybe for years they did it for no money, and that's how they fell in love with it. But eventually, the ones who want to make money are going to make money. So, the only way you make money off of it is if other people are consuming it. So how can you say that you make these things just for yourself when the only way you eat is if other people consume it? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm never going to listen to somebody saying, hey, you should have this type of person on, or you should act this type of way. You shouldn't say those kind of jokes. Go fuck yourself. This is what I'm doing. I'm building this. No, I love advice. I take advice. I'm coachable. I'm all these things. But if you're going to tell me how I'm going to create, no. That is a form of censorship, and that doesn't make sense. Imagine a censored DMX. Like, that just doesn't... That's comical. That's comical, just the idea of that. So, art being a true essence of a person, if you're taking away something that they put together, something that they created from within themselves, then it's not truly reflective of them. And if that happens, then it's not truly art. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people who take part in artistry and have talent and have skill, but they, I always think of a pop star, right? They have talent, they have skill, they have the will to work, they have the will to learn, but they're not truly creating anything. They're just kind of making money, they're doing their thing, they're famous, whatever. And that's cool too. Do whatever the fuck you want. Me, personally, I don't want anybody determining which direction I'm going to go. And if you're telling me what I have to say and what I have to do, you're essentially facing me in a direction. You know what I'm saying? All right, go this way now. No more rants on, no more rants on teenagers scooping ice cream. You know what I'm saying? No more jokes about, the lines being shorter at Starbucks because people are dying. Okay? If you tell me that, then it's not my show anymore. I'm not creating. So I'm a person who sees both sides all the time. I think I'm naturally a centralist. If that's, well, maybe not a centralist because, that's more of a position. It's not like seeing both sides. I don't know what the term is for seeing both sides of the coin, but I do it all the time with everything. And I think, balance obviously is most important, just in the way that we think, the way we act, everything that we do, balance is super fucking important. So yes, I believe that there's a such thing as artist integrity. There's a such thing as, not allowing censorship to fuck up your creation. And to me, that's very, very important to be a true artist. Now, if you're only creating for yourself, then I don't know if we can call it art. I mean, I guess you can, sure, but artistry is to be admired or scrutinized, right? That's what an artist does. Lil Nas X, right? Hey, this dude's getting flamed, right? Ha, flamed, get it? This dude's getting flamed for doing the Satan stuff, right? What's he twerking on? I didn't even watch the video, right? I could care less. But there's a lot of Satan stuff, right? He came out with some shoes with blood on them, which is fucking weird, right? First of all, how did they even allow him to do that? Where did they get the blood, is what I want to know. Did they just get a bunch of diabetic people to just prick their... Because it said it's just a drop of blood. So all I can imagine is a bunch of fat people, or you don't need to be fat to be diabetic, a bunch of diabetic people, with missing limbs just come in and prick their finger right on the Nike shoe, and Nike hands them, a couple $100 for their troubles. Because Nike is ever so gracious, right? So that's weird. But I think it was Joyner Lucas who tweeted, who's like, hey, he's doing what an artist is supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be doing, he's giving you guys something to question. He's creating content, provocative content. He's giving you guys something to think about, something to choose, a side to be on. And that's what artists do. Artists are supposed to provoke thinking. Artists are, all while being themselves, all while maintaining their intellectual property. So, it's like when you hear Lil Wayne, right? All he talks about is fucking pussy and killing people and whatever, right? And people I remember watching interviews like, hey, how do you feel about the youth? The youth listens to you and the influence you have on them. And it's true. They have plenty of influence. But at the same time, his response was like, hey, my job is to make music. My job is to create art. Your job as a parent is to police your kids. If you let them listen to me, then understand they're going to be listening about some pussy and about some drug selling and killing motherfuckers and shit. That's what you're going to hear. If you don't want your kid listening to it, then shut it the fuck off. Which is sickening in and of itself, right? That, people can't understand that. It's been the thing. It's been a debate forever, right? Do artists sacrifice their art? Are you supposed to sacrifice your art because you have such an outreach, because you have such an influence on people? I don't fucking think so. Hell no. That's what art is for. That's what it's there. That's what it's there for, right? Sometimes it's social commentary. Sometimes it's just what's going on in the person's head. Jimi Hendrix used to make music based on what the fuck was going on in his head when he was on drugs, when he was hallucinating, which is incredibly interesting to me, because when you're listening to Jimi Hendrix, knowing that fact, you're essentially in his mind, right? You're essentially engulfed in his brain waves while he's on acid or whatever the fuck he was doing, right? So, artistry it's a common theme on this show, because this show is my way to create. This is my way to display some form of artistry. I've always loved art ever since I was a kid. My first hobby as a kid was painting. My parents bought me an easel when I was real young. I'd sit in front of the window and I'd fucking paint. I remember they framed this big dookie drawing I drew. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and it was like a head with like hair, right? Long hair and eyes, and just had legs. And it was like the sun, and it was in a field or something. And I was a little kid. I remember framing it, and I'm like, wow, that's cool as shit. I just made that, and now it's up there. And when people come in the house, they're going to be like, whoa, you did that? And I'm going to be like, yeah, motherfucker, I did that. Hell yeah. That to me is cool. Or they could be like, wow, that thing fucking sucks. I'd be like, yeah, I mean, hey, if you think it sucks, it sucks. I still put it out there. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I'm fearless. I'm heartless. I want you, what does Mike Tyson say? I want to eat your children. I want to eat your soul, whatever the fuck he says. Praise be to Allah. Right? He's a savage. That's how I feel. That's how I feel when I'm sitting in front of this microphone like a savage. Fuck you, deal. You love me. Right? Another Mike Tyson quote right there. But no, guys. I talk about artistry all the time because it's something near and dear to me. I remember getting a little guitar as a child and just fucking playing with it, not knowing what the hell I was doing before I started to take lessons. But it's just something that I think about. It's something that I think about, and it comes out when I'm on here. And another thing that is indicative of creativity is spontaneity, right? I always fuck that word up, but being spontaneous, right? That's jazz. That's pretty much jazz in a nutshell. Some of the greatest, most intricate music that's been played was improvised. A lot of it was improvised. Those solos, obviously, there's a bass line and there's a rhythm and there's all this stuff and there's a melody, right? But once the solo comes in, it's like, that's going to be different every time. And that, to me, is true artistry, man. That to me, that's why I love this. I love that I can come on here, specifically when I'm alone, come on here and just talk and think out loud. I say it all the time. Think out loud. I think it's important for us to think out loud. I think it's important for us to talk to ourselves. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm essentially talking to other people, and sometimes I have people on, right, and I'm talking to them. But I'm talking to my fucking self right now. I'm sitting in a basement talking to myself. That's what I'm doing. I'm being spontaneous, and I'm just speaking. I'm just saying stupid shit. I'm saying things that's on my mind. Sometimes it's not spontaneous. Again, balance. Art, sometimes you need planning, right? To go back to the jazz example, you need to plan out the melody. You need to plan out the vibe of the bass line and the song and all this stuff. But there's parts of it that need to stay spontaneous, right? And that's how I do this. That's how it started, and that's how I still do it. And will it change somewhere down the road? I don't know. Maybe. I like not having a particular focus on the show, though. I like, being able to sometimes just riff, But nonetheless, guys, this has been phenomenal. I can't believe I've even gotten to this point. I say it all the time. That's how I started the episode. And because, like I said, guys, I get bored. I get fucking bored. My mind's going a million miles a second all the time, all day, thinking, hyper-awareness, all that shit. It's what happens. That's what the fuck it is with me. So the fact that I've stuck with this, I'm realizing more and more that this is going to be something that I want to stick with for a long time, man. I really do. So here's to almost 80 episodes in our first studio. I'm probably going to post some pictures of it, like a before and after type thing, just to keep it out there, man. I want everybody to be on my journey with me. Anybody that listens to the show, now, and are still listening 400 episodes in or something, then, I really appreciate you guys because you're a part of the journey. You're a part of all of this. You guys give me the motivation. Even if I get no downloads on an episode, you know what I'm saying? No downloads meaning, not as much as I want or as much as I thought. That shit don't matter. If, because again, it's just about putting it out there. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Eventually, something's going to break through. Something's going to break through. And it's going to put you on that next level. And then now you're going to have a whole nother, time of stagnance. You're going to have a fucking, another time of that. And then there'll be another thing that puts you on that next level. And that's what it is, man. And I'm realizing that through this. And I'll say this. If this turns into absolutely nothing, at least I learned a lot of this stuff. At least I learned about creating something and starting something and understanding what it means to endure the hardships of something. Because if you're enduring the hardships of something that you don't love, then it's terrible. It's awful. You're going to not want to do it. But if you're enduring the hardships of something you truly love, then hey, that's all part of it. Then you're going to get somewhere with it. Put it that way. And the longer you put up with it, the better your chances are of getting somewhere with it. So I think that's where we're going to wrap this motherfucker up. This was actually a really good one. This was good. I'm happy I was able to kind of do my thing on here for my last episode down here. Many, many more to come, guys. Make sure you guys follow me all over. Make sure you guys share the show. And look out for our episode on Thursday, which is technically the last episode in here. But this is the last time I am recording alone in this studio. Thank you, guys. Peace.